air into and out of a person's respiratory system. Okay? Record of the volume movement of air into and out of the respiratory system or the lungs of a person. When you record this movement of air that is going in and that is coming out, why do you record it? To have many useful reasons. Okay, we will see those reasons later on. For now, what is spirometry? How do you define spirometry?
Record the volume, movement in the
And it is the most commonly used respiratory function test for assessing respiratory disease worldwide. And another name for spirometry is pulmonary function test. What is another name? Pulmonary function test or PFTs. Now, to understand the spirometry process itself, the investigation itself, we have to have knowledge about what we are going to see in the paper. Now, you have the paper in front of you, for example. To interpret that particular paper, you have to have certain knowledge first, isn't it? What we are going to look for. These are studied under 4 volumes and 4 capacities. Okay? 4 pulmonary volumes and 4 pulmonary capacities. And as you can see, number 1, let us start with that. First of all is the tidal volume. Again, let me repeat. Why are we studying the volumes and the capacities? Because spirometry is recording the volume movement of air that is going in and coming out. What do you mean by volume movement? Volume, how much amount, how much quantity, how much volume of air can be taken in and out. So for this, we have to know the volumes and the capacities that we will be recording, right? First will be tidal volume. Tidal volume is that volume of air that we inspire and expire, take in and give out normally, like for example you people are doing right now. Okay? Without any extra effort, no exercise, no nothing. Just normal. This amount of volume of air.
There isn't just oxygen or
Air. Not just, do we inspire just oxygen? We are inspiring the air that is available to us. Right? Oxygen is a part of this. How much part? Now that you ask this question, I will ask you. Huh? Yeah, 20. Majority of the air that we are breathing, it consists nitrogen, correct? Majority is nitrogen. So we are talking about air, not oxygen. Okay? Air. So that volume of air which we take in and give out in one respiratory cycle, normally and at rest, is called as tidal volume. How much is it? It is about half a liter, 0.5 liter or 500 milliliters. Okay, so this is the one volume.
In one cycle.
In one respiratory cycle. What is one respiratory cycle? You take inspiration and you give out the air, which is expiration. Inspiration followed by expiration. This is one cycle, right? Take in and give out. Then take in, then give out. So there are respiratory cycles. This you can calculate, which is known as the respiratory rate of a person. How many respiratory cycles do we carry out in 1 minute? About 16, right? That is the respiratory rate of a normal person. So respiratory cycles are about 16 per minute. So that is tidal volume. Is it clear what is tidal volume? At rest, basic volume of air that is coming in and going out. Okay? Now, there is the question then. Can we take air above what we have taken normally?
Yes.
Yes, we have a capacity, isn't it? Respiring normally, the normal respiration is over, or normal inspiration is over. Can we increase it voluntarily? Yes. That means normally we are not using this capacity, this volume. Are we using that normally?
No.
No. if we are not using something normally, but it is there, what is the term for it? Reserve. Reserve.
Like in car.
Everywhere. Yani, even in the car sometimes. In the car also, you may have a tank of petrol, okay, which you will be using normally, and there may be a smaller tank, which will be a reserve tank, right? I think it's there in cruiser, Land Cruiser, right? A second tank. So something that you don't use normally, but it is there. It can be used in conditions of stress or exercise, other conditions, right? That is called as a reserve. So, if we can inspire 500 milli air normally, but with effort we can inspire more air. This more air, naturally this is a reserve volume of air. And because this is in inspiration, it will be called as inspiratory reserve volume. Clear?
Yes.
What is inspiratory reserve volume? Inspiratory reserve volume is the volume of air that we can inspire over and above or in addition to normal tidal volume. Okay, clear? This is about 3 liters. 3 liters. Yani our reserve is much more than what we usually inspire and expire. We usually take in 500 milliliters and give out 500 milliliters. But we can, if we want to take in after the 0.5 liter, after half liter, after that we can take 3 liters more air in inspiration. Okay? So this gives us the inspiratory reserve volume, which is about 3 liters. Similarly, opposite of that will be the expiratory reserve volume. Now it is very easy to understand what will be the expiratory reserve volume.
Above the normal.
Yeah, after our normal expiration. What is the normal expiration? 500 milli. 500 milli. Can we expire more air? Yes, we can. Okay? So that is expiratory reserve volume, meaning the volume of air that we can expire forcefully after normal expiration. Correct? After normal expiration. The expiratory reserve volume is the maximum extra volume of air that can be expired forceful expiration after the end of normal tidal expiration. Now normal expiration. This normally amounts to about how much? 1.1 liters or 1100 milliliters.
Doctor, what about the difference between inspiration and expiration? Because in inspiration 3 liter and we have addition of air.
Yeah, that means our inspiratory volume reserve is much more than our expiratory.
Yes, but we take addition volume of air.
Yeah.
What's happening in our body? That for expiration just 1 liter and we have...
We will come to that. Okay. That brings us to the residual volume. Okay. That means, what do you mean by residual? Residual means remaining. That which is remaining behind. Residual. So residual volume again now is very simple to understand, is the volume of air that remains in the lung after
expiration.
maximum forceful expiration, after the most forceful expiration. Yani, no matter how much you try, you cannot bring that air out. You cannot bring that out.
You can't empty the lungs. You can't empty the lungs.
You cannot empty the lungs. Okay? So you understand the difference? That is the difference.
So
that is the residual volume.
There is 700 millimeters our bodies take.
Okay? And this residual volume is about 1.2 liters or 1200 milliliters. Are the volumes clear, all of you? Tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, finally residual volume.
Doctor,
Is it clear, all of them?
but in tidal volume we have a half liter inspiration, half liter to expiration. So it's equal. But here we have more air in our body.
So
What they do in our body?
it is the residual volume, the volume of air that cannot be removed from the body, from the lungs. No matter what you do, you cannot remove it. It remains inside. And like he said, some of it is absorbed, and it is going for nutrition purposes. Oxygen is supplied, etc., etc. Isn't it?
That means I inspire 1000 milliliter. Is it all of it will expire? Or some of
The tidal volume you are talking about,
the total if I inspire 1000 milliliter?
normally?
No.
Ah,
Is it all of it will expire?
yes. And what is the question? What are you trying to ask? Like tidal volume, for example.
There is the residual oil. In this condition, there is no residual oil.
In which condition?
If I inspire 1000.
Residual volume is always there. You cannot touch it. It is residual volume. Okay? It is what will keep the lungs open.
But in the definition, it is lung after the most box expiration.
Yeah, even if you carry out, you try very hard, most forceful expiration, you do. But still, the air that remains inside, that is called as the residual volume.
Can be more of by that being box.
Maximum inspiration and carry out maximum expiration. Even then, the air that remains is 1200. Even in normal respiration, the air that remains inside is 1200. Okay?
These values are for a normal person, but they are the same for every normal person, or they change?
They change. Depends. Depends. I'll give that line also. It is there here.
There's a range.
It's not a range. It depends upon the person's height, the person's build, etc. Females are having less capacities like that. It's not a range. That is any average values. That is the values which I have given. This brings us to capacity. Now, volume. What is the difference between volume and capacity? Volume means a quantity of air, right? 500 or 3000. Capacity is a combination of things. Sure. If they are not coming now, please. Who are talking outside? Capacity is always including one or more values, and then it becomes a capacity. So it's again easy to understand. Once you have understood the volumes, it's easy to understand the capacity. Now, if we include, instead of separating them, we separated tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. There were two separate things. If we include them as one, because both of them are inspiration, during inspiration, this becomes a capacity, and that is called as the inspiratory capacity. So what is the inspiratory capacity of a person? It is the normal tidal volume which he inspires normally and slowly without any effort at rest. But when he applies effort, he can inspire 3 liters more, 3000 milliliter more. So this is his total capacity, right? This is his total inspiratory capacity. So you understand what is inspiratory capacity? Inspiratory capacity is normal tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. So okay, it will be 3000 liters plus 500, which will be 3500. 3500. It is written there. Okay, 3500. Simple. Understood?
Yes.
Inspiratory capacity. Second is functional residual capacity. FRC. FRC. Functional residual capacity. Now, residual, you know, remaining behind.
Yes.
Okay? Functional residual capacity equals the expiratory reserve volume.
And residual.
Okay? Expiratory reserve volume plus the residual volume. Let me show you a diagram. Okay? Now, this is the tidal volume. Inspiration, expiration, inspiration, expiration. Normal. Right? How much? About 500 milliliters. Now, after the normal inspiration, which is 500 milliliters, you can take in more amount of air. And from here to here, it is inspiratory reserve volume. Correct?
Yes.
From here to here. But from here to here is inspiratory capacity, right?
Yes.
From here to here is inspiratory capacity.
Yes.
We were talking about functional residual capacity. What was the definition of functional residual capacity? Expiratory reserve volume. What is the expiratory reserve volume? This one. This is the normal tidal volume.
Yes.
And what is the expiratory reserve volume? Reserve means more that you can give out
Yes.
after normal. So more that you can give out after normal. Up to here is normal. From here to here is with effort,
Yes.
right? With force. So this is expiratory reserve volume, written here. Expiratory reserve volume. Then you also know residual volume, 1200 milli. If you combine residual volume with expiratory reserve volume, this is called as FRC, functional residual capacity. That answers your question. The residual capacity is after the most forceful effort. You cannot remove it. That is residual capacity, residual volume. But normally, when we are breathing in and out, right now what you are doing, breathing in and out, the tidal volume, how much amount of air is remaining behind? That is the functional residual capacity. Why functional? Because it helps in proper functioning of the respiratory system, not the nervous system. I had a lecture today in the morning with the CNS, so the nervous system is coming in between. Anyway, so this is from here to here is functional residual capacity. What was your question?
Is that the highest one? Is the inspiratory reserve volume?
Inspiratory reserve volume.
Yes. Is it
Inspiratory reserve volume.
the highest one?
From here to here.
Yes.
That is inspiratory reserve volume.
6,000. It's 6,000.
هذا كل شيء يا أخي من هنا صفر إلى
Doctor, what's the mean vital capacity?
well,
Vital
I
capacity.
will come to that. First, let me go step by step. Clear?
If it's the inspiratory reserve volume, it's go up. Does it go down by expiration?
Yes. Of course, it has to be. This is the record. This is the tracing of your respiratory movement. Okay? So when you will inspire, it will go up. When you will expire, then you
So
will.
when it's come down, is it expiratory reserve volume? Does it go like that? No, I don't understand.
You mean to say this is the expiratory reserve volume from here?
So let's go back to normal again.
Yes, from normal. Okay? After normal expiration, over and above what you can expire, that is the expiratory reserve volume. This is normal expiration. This is normal, not even normal I will say, because this is the inspiration, reserve inspiration that you have taken in. So this is the reserve coming out of air that you have taken it over and above the normal. Okay? Are we clear up to inspiratory capacity and functional residual capacity? Clear?
Yes.
Next capacity, vital capacity. Somebody was asking about vital capacity, isn't it? What is vital capacity? Basically, it is defined as the volume of air that you can take in with maximum forceful inspiration and immediately give out with maximum forceful expiration. Got it?
Yes.
In one line, in simple line, maximum forceful inspiration followed by maximum forceful expiration. This is called as vital capacity.
That's been one cycle of respiratory.
Yes, that is called as vital capacity. And vital capacity will include inspiratory capacity and
Expiration.
expiratory reserve volume. Because we cannot touch the residual volume. Why cannot we include the functional residual capacity in it? Because the residual volume we cannot touch, we cannot record, it doesn't come out. So, vital capacity will be inspiratory capacity plus expiratory reserve volume. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, everyone? Okay, what is vital capacity? So you just add up what is inspiratory capacity 3500. What is expiratory reserve volume? 1100. So add 4600 or 4.6 liters. Correct?
Yes.
Yes? Vital capacity about 4600. Where do we get the 4600 from?
Yes.
Okay? We get it from here. This is vital capacity. Correct?
Yes.
From here to here is inspiratory capacity. From here to here is
Expiration reserve.
expiratory reserve volume. That is vital capacity for you. Fourth, again very simple to understand, the TLC, total lung capacity. Total. How much? 6,000. Right? Total, yes, 6,000. See? 5,800. Almost about 6,000 milliliters or
6 liters.
5,800 or 6,000 or 6 liters, you can say, or 5.8 liters on an average. Total lung capacity, yani from zero, from the residual volume last, because why do we include residual volume in this? Because we are calculating the total amount of air that can be filled in a respiratory system of a person. Total. That will be at the end of maximum forceful inspiration. Correct? At the end of maximum forceful inspiration, how much air, volume of air is present in the person? It will be inspiratory capacity plus expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. Or it will be equal to inspiratory capacity plus functional residual capacity. Am I being very confusing? No? Alhamdulillah. How? See, this is total lung capacity. Shoo, enough. From here to here. Total lung capacity. So, what is this from here to here? This is inspiratory capacity. Right? Inspiratory capacity. What is this from here to here? Functional residual capacity. So, IC, inspiratory capacity, plus FRC, functional residual capacity, is equal to TLC, which is total lung capacity. Just add the figures, you will get about 6 liters or 5.8 liters. Your point. All pulmonary volumes and capacities are about 20 to 25% less in women as compared to men. Why? Because of the difference in the gender and the build. Naturally, there is a difference in the build of the males and the females. So they are on an average about 20 to 25% less. But keep in mind, we have to compare the same, yani we have to compare oranges with oranges, apples with apples, not apple with orange. Like we cannot compare an Asian woman with a European man or a European woman who is big and tall and 6 feet height with an Asian man. Okay, you cannot say her capacity will be more than this poor guy, right? Isn't it? So, ethnicity, keeping in mind the factor of ethnicity, it is about 20 to 25% less in women than men, and they are greater, yani the pulmonary volumes and capacities are greater in well-built persons, large and athletic people as compared to small and asthenic persons. So these variations are there. Okay? One point which I would like to introduce here is FEV1. Another point. FEV1. FEV1 stands for forced expiratory volume of air. Forced expiratory volume of air. What does the one indicate? In the first second. When you are carrying out expiration, you are recording the expiration. When you record the expiration, you can record it. The expiration will take place over time. It will take place, it may take for expiration to begin and to end your expiration. It will take some seconds, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to know how much amount, volume of air has come out in the first second of expiration. That is called as FEV.
What's the importance point?
You will know, we will come to that. Just understand FEV1 right now, the term FEV1. The term FEV1 stands for forced expiratory volume of air in the first second of expiration. This we have finished with. Okay. Now this phrase is of forceful expiration, right? Forceful. The person is being asked to forcefully exhale, forcefully expire, and it is being recorded. Naturally, in this machine, this tracing is going down. Okay. If we take it, if we plot it over time, volume over time, we can see that this is 1 second from here to here, 2 seconds from here to here, 3 seconds, like that, right? So if we mark it, this is the point of beginning of expiration, and 1 second. If we just mark it, okay, we can know the volume of air that is being expired in the first second of expiration. Similarly, in the second of expiration and in the third second of expiration. Now, why do we want to know this? You know that there are certain respiratory diseases, respiratory disorders, which are classifiable. We can differentiate them like obstructive and restrictive disorders. What is the difference between obstructive and restrictive? Asthma, for example. Asthma. What is asthma? Is it restrictive or obstructive?
Obstructive.
It is obstructive. Very correct. And there is a whole group of diseases called as COPD. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders. Right? Similarly, okay, can someone differentiate for me the difference between obstructive and restrictive? Actually, what happens to the movement of air? Anyone? Don't be afraid to make mistake. Doesn't mean you will make a mistake, but don't be afraid. What do you mean by obstruction? Obstruction means stoppage, occlusion to the flow of something. Over here, air, right? And the air is flowing through what? Through tubes. These tubes, you can call them, or you have to call them trachea and the bronchi, isn't it? The whole bronchial tree. All these are tubular structures, right? And air is flowing through the tubes. Now, for whatever reason, if the tube is narrow, whether there is a foreign body or a growth or sticky mucus secretion more inside, or as you must be knowing from your histology and anatomical studies of the respiratory system, there are smooth muscles in the bronchial tree. These smooth muscles, they can contract, and upon contracting they will narrow the passageways. Will this obstruct the flow of air? Yes. Yes. What happens in asthma? It is an allergic condition.
Yes.
What happens in it? Okay, that is one point. Due to inflammation, the fluid will be, the mucus will be accumulated. But basically, that is a result of, what is the first primary thing which happens in asthma? It is allergic, mind you.
Must still.
Spasm,
Yes.
called as bronchospasm. What is spasm? Contraction of the bronchiolar smooth muscles, like I told you just now. Okay? Bronchiolar smooth muscles. If they go in contraction, it is called as bronchospasm. What do you give? That is inhalation. What is that? Bronchodilator. Opposite of bronchospasm. Okay? Salbutamol, etc., etc. That you give. Obstructive. So I hope it is clear. I just give one example, asthma, because it's very common and very easily understandable. What about the restrictive group of diseases? Restrictive. Restrict. Now the term restrict means to hold back, right? I am restricting your study progress, for example. I won't, but to explain the term, restriction, hudud, conditions, isn't it? And try to stop people or things from doing something. That is a restriction. One is obstruction. So obstruction will be from outside to differentiate here.
Yes.
Obstruction from outside. I want to go out and somebody is obstructing. Right? What about restriction? I want to go out and you are pulling me. Now you understand the difference between restriction and obstruction. So obstruction to flow of air, obstructive diseases like asthma, for example, or tumors, or any number of diseases are there. Restrictive, on the other hand, will be some changes which are occurring in the respiratory system itself, like interstitial lung disease, for example, or fibrosis.
TB.
Today morning you have had a physiology lecture on elasticity and compliance,
Yes.
isn't it? So if you relate that particular knowledge with what I am trying to tell you right now, is that changes in the connective tissue, which is, the lung parenchyma is having elastic fibers,
Yes.
which allows it to stretch when the air is coming in and collapse and help the air in going out. If this elastic property is lost,
Like
right?
a TB.
right, it will restrict the movement of air. Yes or no from inside,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right? So that is restrictive disorder for you. I hope the difference is clear, because we will be coming to the result of and the interpretation based upon the spirometry. Just remember one point here in this slide, only one point. Determination of functional residual capacity, residual volume and total lung capacity. How do we do it? We use a method called as the helium dilution method. Don't ask me how it is done. We are not concerned with the process, etc. today. We have to focus on the spirometry and the spirometer. Just remember this, that it is done using the helium dilution. Now, indications for spirometry. What do you mean by indication in medical?
Uses.
Use, or when it should be given. Not use. Indication is a term widely used for many things in medicine as a doctor. This medicine is indicated and it should be given. Right? Or this investigation is indicated in this, or this precaution is indicated in this. Okay? Indications and contraindications. So what are the indications for spirometry? Basically, those four: diagnostic purposes, monitoring purposes, evaluation of disability or impairment, and finally for screening purposes, screening, anatomical. Okay? We will go very quickly over this because you know everything. To diagnostic will be to evaluate the symptoms. If somebody is saying he is having dyspnea, chest pain, orthopnea, etc., etc. I will not go into the explanation of the terms. I take it that you know the terms. Okay, dyspnea, etc. A patient complains to you, you can refer him to a pulmonologist. Who is this person? A pulmonologist. He is a specialist. He first does the general medicine, then he does a specialty in internal medicine, and then from internal medicine he becomes a super specialist or consultant called as a pulmonologist, and he will do all these things for you. You want to This is just for Jenny, for you. Okay? Like I told you, I don't want to waste time explaining terms. I don't want to waste time explaining terms.
Okay, no problem.
Just go on. You know, orthopnea is positional dyspnea.
Yes.
Positional
When is it
orthopnea. Yeah.
Yes. Fine.
Breathing difficulty when you are in the lying position or the sitting position, that is called as orthopnea. Like orthostatic hypotension or hypertension. Phlegm. Phlegm means the mucus that is produced. Mucus that is produced. When you cough, the cough that comes out, the mucus sticky. It's not a fluid. Sputum. The common term is sputum. That is the common English language term. Phlegm is the medical term for that. Breathing is a
Sound.
Okay? To evaluate all these things. Okay, shall I go on? To evaluate the abnormal laboratory test, to evaluate complaints of a person, to measure effect of disease on pulmonary function, to screen persons for risk, etc. etc. Okay? To monitor. Monitor means to keep an eye on, to watch. Okay? To follow up. For example, you give a person who is having asthma, you give bronchodilator therapy. Now you want to see whether the bronchodilator therapy is having an effect or no on this person. You have to increase the dose or decrease the dose or change the medicine. Monitoring for bronchodilator therapy, for example. Okay? Similarly, to describe the course of diseases affecting lungs. Course of disease, yani prognosis. Then there are various occupations. You know, people are working in hazardous conditions, and Some people are working in cement factory, for example. You know cement asman
Yeah.
factory. So you can imagine the amount of pollution in the air. So you can monitor the person in occupations with exposure to injurious agents. You know, there are diseases called as silicosis, asbestosis, and so on and so forth. People working in silicon factories, they will have silicosis, silicon deposits in their lungs. In working in asbestos factories, they will have microscopic asbestos deposits in their lungs. So asbestosis, silicosis, etc. Right? Similarly, disability or impairment. To assess patient as part of a rehabilitation, rehabilitation program, medical, industrial or vocational. Again, vocational means their jobs, etc. To assess risk for insurance. So there are so many applications of the spirometry or the pulmonary function testing. Public health epidemiologic surveys, community medicine, screening, derivation of reference equations, etc. 101 uses for spirometry. Right. After that, after the uses, let's just briefly see about that particular discussion I had with you about obstructive and restrictive disorders. How it appears in the spirometer or the spirograph. This is the normal spirograph of a person. Okay. As you can see, it's a loop, and the loop is complete. This is inspiratory loop or inspiratory limb, and this is the expiratory loop or the expiratory limb. Why it is like that? Because of the new electronic methods. Okay, the previous chart that I have shown you, that used the old method, old spirometer. We have this in the other room. It is called as a water spirometer. So there is water and there is a inverted bell, and the inverted bell is having air inside, and this bell is connected to a rider, and there is a drum rotating. Okay? So in that, when you take air, you are taking air from the bell. So the bell goes down because you are taking air. If it goes down, the rider will take an upstroke. So inspiration is upstroke in that. But in the electronic, you see, this is the electronic transducer. Okay, so there is a membrane here inside, and there is a sensor, there is a transducer. After that, the membrane, when you will take in air, the membrane will move towards you, towards your mouth, isn't it? Inside the machine. That's why it gives a, because this is a record. Electronically, the machine is recording that. So movement of the membrane is towards the person. The membrane, it goes down, it records a negative deflection as compared to the baseline. As compared to the baseline, it goes down. Okay? As his inspiration is complete, it comes back to the baseline. When he will expire forcefully, it will go up because the membrane is pushed in the opposite direction.
Yes.
Right? When you inspire, the membrane is moving like this. When you expire, the membrane is coming back to its original and then going back towards the opposite side. So that's why the deflection is like this and like that. Get it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the normal. This is obstructive and this is restrictive. Now it's very easy to compare because this is the normal. Okay? In the normal, you can see to take in the air in obstructive disorders and to give out the air. Look at it. Compare it with the normal. Isn't it? Compare it with the normal. What is happening? It is very difficult to forcefully give out air. See the amount of air that is coming out in maximum forceful expiration. In inspiration, it's somewhat okay. Okay? This is not for asthma. This is for COPD. Remember. In asthma, even the inspiration is difficult. In asthma, even the inspiration is difficult. Here, we are not talking about asthma, mind you. We are talking about COPD, obstructive pulmonary disorder. Okay? In this, in COPD diseases, you can compare the inspiration with the normal inspiration, it's almost like the appearance is the same. Appearance is the same.
But smaller
The
shape.
volume is less.
Volume, yes.
Volume is less, but appearance is not changed. Here, not only the volume is less, but appearance is also different. How? What is the difference in appearance? What is the
It's
difference in
the difference in
appearance?
expression.
Here you can see the downward slope straight,
Yes.
whereas here you see the downward slope going like a curve, and see the distance. Long time. It is not taking a long time. See, it is coming here. Here it is taking a long time, the air to come out. Right? This is indicative of obstruction, because there is obstruction to flow of air. Okay? Now let's see about restrictive, which is interstitial lung disease, which is restricting the expansion of the lungs. So when air is trying to come in, you see this is the normal. So the shape here is changed. See this shape and see this shape. Right? So there is restriction from within the tissue of the lung. It is not able to comply, it is not able to expand. So it will change the inspiratory phase and it will change the expiratory phase. But the volume of air that is going out and the shape of expiration is remaining the same.
But this
Okay? In expiration there is no problem, but in inspiration there is a problem. Why? Because the lungs are not able to expand, because there is restriction from within. Are you understanding the difference
Yes.
between obstructive and restrictive? Okay? And just look at it, yani, compare it with normal. Here also the normal is given, here also the normal is given. Okay? And you will very easily remember and understand the differences in the spirometry or the spirograph as compared to normal in case of a restrictive and obstructive
Doctor,
condition.
Exercise.
Hmm?
Last one.
Hmm.
Exercise.
Exercise. Exercise is different.
It's like TB.
I did not cover effect of exercise on this.
Doctor,
Okay?
it's like in TB. In TB case. Last
Tuberculosis.
Yes.
Ah.
It's like
Restrictive disease. Restrictive. Okay. Just very brief about the spirometry and the obstructive and restrictive and what we basically as a doctor is supposed to interpret from this and what do we do. So we do spirometry and we find out that there is low FEV1 FVC ratio. Ratio means the forced expiratory volume of air in 1 second. You know that, isn't it? You will take it. You will take it as a percentage, and you will also calculate the forced vital capacity. Easy to calculate, isn't it? It will give, the machine will give you, and it will also give you the ratio. Now you have a normal ratio, and in case of obstruction, the ratio will change. It will be less. In case of restrictive diseases, again the ratio will change. Either it will be remaining normal or it will be higher because it's a ratio. Okay? Now, if it is low, it means obstruction. If it is normal or high, it means restriction. If it is obstructive, now you want to find out whether it is asthma or COPD. Both are obstructive. So what you do, you give a bronchodilator therapy. You give bronchodilator. And then you do spirometry again. Do it again. After bronchodilator therapy, if the FEV1 increases, it means it is asthma. Why? Because you are giving bronchodilator to dilate the bronchospasm.
Yes.
So it will improve the FEV1. If it increases FEV1, it means asthma. If there is no change in FEV1, it means COPD. Similarly, in restrictive, when there is normal or high FEV1 to FEVC ratio in a person, first time you do experiment. When the ratio is high or normal, okay, you suspect restrictive lung diseases because he comes to you with problems. Okay. So based on the problems, you do this test, experiment. You give, this is diffusing capacity, diffusing lung capacity for carbon monoxide. CO stands for carbon monoxide. As you know, gases are diffusing, moving from within the lung to the blood and from the blood to the lung, right?
Yes.
So using this diffusing capacity, why do we want to use the diffusing capacity? Why do we want to use the diffusing capacity for restrictive lung diseases? Because it's the tissue of the lung that is affected. It is the tissue of the lung that is changed. That means there is a respiratory membrane. Have you come across the respiratory membrane? No. Okay, so in the alveoli, when you go to the level of the alveoli, in the alveolar wall, what is coming inside the alveolar is air, right? Where does this air go then? There is exchange of gases. There is exchange of gases through the respiratory membrane.
Yes, yes.
It is having 5 layers.
Yes.
5 layers. Okay, so there are changes in this respiratory membrane, and there are changes in the surrounding parenchyma. That is why it is called as interstitial lung disease. Right? I told you in the beginning.
Yes.
So, if there is interstitial lung disease, if there is fibrosis or emphysema or something else, okay, naturally the diffusing capacity will be affected. Yes or no? Diffusing capacity will be affected. For that, we use a gas called as carbon monoxide. Using that, we do DLCO, diffusing lung capacity of carbon monoxide. We give this for only 10 seconds, mind you. We don't want to give carbon monoxide too much. The person will die.
Yes.
You know that?
Yes.
One of the ways of doing suicide, just take the pipe from the exhaust of the car and put the pipe back in and close the windows and sit inside, and you will be gone, because that is carbon monoxide. So we use this. This is a very, specialists do this, of course. We give it for only measured, and we give it for only 10 seconds, and from that you can measure how much amount of carbon dioxide has been absorbed by the person and how much has been given up. If we know the difference, we can know the diffusing capacity, right?
How did you do that? And the
So
special
the machines do it. It does not go into house.
Okay.
It's a detailed process.
Yes.
Okay, so once you give that, if the diffusing capacity you find to be normal, that means there is nothing wrong inside the lung,
Yes.
because the diffusing capacity is normal. So why is there reduced?
Maybe in the
Because the chest wall itself is weak. There are various conditions, polio like, for example, or respiratory muscle paralysis, or organophosphorus poisoning, or so many different conditions are there. So there is no problem with the interstitium of the lung, because the diffusing capacity is normal. If you find the diffusing capacity to be normal, there is the normal or high FEV1 or the spirometric result is because of chest wall weakness.
yes.
If the diffusing capacity is decreased, that means there is interstitial lung disease. Mazboot? This is the spirometer. That is another type of spirometer. Okay, this spirometer we have here, JIMA. Okay, and this is the printout. This here you can feed the patient's information, etc., etc. It will give out the complete printout like this particular. Another machine basically performing the same function. This is the sheet. Let me finish first. Then let me talk about the exam. At least let me finish.
Yes.
Worried about the exam. Okay, this is just for you to know the various parameters. Okay, just to know the parameters. They are explained here. What is FVC? It is force vital capacity. It is measured in liters. Okay, so for that there are many, like I have told you, many parameters which are measured using the parameter. And particularly because we have the electronic one, it can calculate using algorithms. It can calculate many things. Not like the water parameter. The water parameter was very primitive, It could calculate only the vital capacity, inspiratory, expiratory bus. This, it is doing all these things. All subjects' data must be inserted before making a spirometry test, inserted in the machine, okay? Fed into, how to do it? Now there is a box here, and here are the
Yes.
mouthpieces, and there is something called as a nose clip. You can use it to pinch the nose. Why? You don't want leakages. You don't want air to leak out from the nose. and this is the mouthpiece. The mouthpiece is attached here. After you do it, you start the system, okay? You start the system, and you have to, I think now you should come here. This is the demonstration time. We cannot, right.
Is it always used with abnormal condition?
Yes. I gave you four major reasons: diagnostic, monitoring, for evaluation, for rehabilitation, and for screening for public health. So there are many uses for this.
Can be recorded the heartbeat, right?
Yes, it is having multiple uses. This particular machine can be used as a ECG machine and also as a spiro.
Doctor, that means the result not exist normal for normal person, just for abnormal person. This measures.
Yeah. For example, if you want to measure your own pulmonary volumes and capacities and all those
Because
things,
doctor,
you can do it.
You can differentiate between
Yes.
interstitial and normal.
Doctor, because you just say to us there is low. That's mean if it's low, that's what mean
What
Chronic
low?
obstruction pulmonary disease.
obstruction. If it's normal or high, that's mean destruction.
يعني يمكن يكون normal.
No. Normal yani what normal? The FEV1 over FVC ratio, if it is normal.
Yes.
Yeah, are you getting my point? What is normal? The FEV1 over FVC ratio, if it is normal.
Yes.
And when will you do the calculation for FEV1 FVC ratio? When the patient will come to you for some
You have a problem.
then you will do spirometry. If you find his FEV1 FVC ratio as normal or high, then that is the interpretation. Normal doesn't mean a normal person.
That's if EV it's exists here from here. or-
Yes.
Okay, doctor, let's
Yeah.
do it.
So here you can see FVC, that is the forced vital capacity. It is written here. There are icons, and there is SVC, that is slow vital capacity. There is MVV, maximum ventilatory volume. So you can do three things over here. Okay. Now, how do you do forced vital capacity? What is vital capacity? Like I have told you, maximum forceful inspiration followed by maximum forceful expiration. This is FVC. Okay. So you have to attach it. Okay. If you want the nose clip, okay. If you don't want the nose clip, okay. If you want to put it in your mouth, okay. If you don't want to put it in your mouth, just hold it like this, okay. Because we are doing a demo here. Alhamdulillah, no patients, nothing. Just doing a demo.
Yes.
Okay. You should know how it is done.
Yes.
So here I will just show you how, yani, after inspiring and expiring normally, okay. Take a deep breath, okay. Take a deep breath. Why? Because you want to carry out,
Vital.
vital capacity, force,
Yes.
okay. So this is FVC. This is FVC. Maximum inspiration
This is the-
followed by maximum expiration.
This doctor 5,000.
This is
This,
FVC.
this is what's equal 5,000.
4,600.
4,000.
5,800 is total lung capacity.
Yes.
Second, so you should click here,
Yes.
then it starts the recording, then you do it.
Yes.
Then SVC,
Slow.
slow. This was forced. Here it is slow.
No.
This is a new term that has been introduced. Basically, you won't find it in the books. SVC, you slowly carry out inspiration like vital capacity, same. The only difference is there is no force here.
Yes.
Fill your lungs to the maximum. This is SVC, slow vital capacity. Maximum slow inspiration followed by maximum slow expiration. First one was maximum forceful inspiration followed by maximum forceful expiration. That was the first one. What about the third one? MVV, maximum ventilatory volume. You have to do it for about 15 seconds or so, and you have to carry out maximum inspiration, maximum expiration